The COVID crisis has revealed a modern battleground in which molding, controlling, and capturing your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs are the objective. I'm going to speak about fifth-generation warfare. As I said, this is not a term that I invented. Fifth-generation warfare is a war of information and perception. A strange game. The only winning move is not to play. The basic idea is that in the modern era, wars are not fought by armies or guerrillas, but in the minds of common citizens. Your mind is the new battleground. It's a new technology space, and for protest movements, the methods that were employed during the 20th century, centralized leadership, protest movements, is now completely obsolete. We have to come, if we're going to win this, and I'm sure most of this audience appreciates that the COVID crisis is just a skirmish. The battle is much, much larger than what we're just talking about here. And if we're going to win this battle, we have to understand the battleground. We have to understand their playing field. We have to understand their technology, their strategies, their tactics. We need to assimilate them, and we need to respond to them not by assimilating their ethics, but by deploying technology that's appropriate for this new battle space. In true fifth-generation warfare, you do not know who your opponent is. Example, who is responsible for, who's the puppet master behind the COVID crisis as we've experienced it? Who is it? Anybody here know? Was it Klaus? No. There's something above Klaus. Was it Biden? Was it Tony Fauci? These are all surrogates, okay? You don't really know who is managing the message that has been propagated on you. That's fifth-generation warfare. Over the last 3 years, Western governments, non-governmental organizations, transnational organizations, pharmaceutical industry corporations, media and financial corporations have cooperated via public-private partnerships, which I assert is a euphemism for fascism, to deploy the most massive, globally harmonized psychological and propaganda operation in the history of the world. Okay? Over the last 3 years, you have been subjected to the most massive, harmonized, globally coordinated propaganda campaign in the history of the Western world, full stop. With this campaign, the governments of many Western nation states have turned, okay, this is key, military-grade psychological operations strategies, tactics, technologies, and capabilities developed for modern military combat against their own citizens. These are inconvenient facts. The world that many of us believed existed no longer exists if it ever did. Before fourth and fifth generation warfare, modern warfare between states was a duel on larger scale, a continuation of politics by other means, with core elements of rationality of the state, probability in military command, and rage of the population, Clausewitz. Okay? Rational state actors, we're in an environment in which the nation state is treated as an obsolete entity. We have a new vague cloud of globalist leadership that we can't even put our fingers on. We don't really know who's driving it. The internet has changed everything, as we all know. Now we're in a battle space where the battleground is literally your mind. It is what you think, it is what you feel, it is what motivates you. That can all be manipulated and is manipulated on a daily basis. When seeking to understand what this means, you're forced to enter this bizarre, shifting, surreal psychological terrain. To understand it, you must temporarily suspend and restructure what you thought you knew about truth, ethics, media, information, social organization, business, government, and the military. Okay? In this total warfare landscape, there are no ethics. There are no ethics. There are no ethical boundaries to what they will do. It is all about the utilitarian means justify the ends. Okay? And you have to, for many of us, it's shocking. You cannot conceive of a world in which there are no ethical boundaries. You can't conceive of warfare in which there's no guardrails. There's no consensus about the rules of engagement. But that's what we're in right now. You have to completely park any idea of justice, right and wrong. All that is obsolete in this battlefield environment. As you step into this hellscape, set aside obsolete notions of fairness and rules. This is total unrestricted information warfare, and you've been subjected to it for the last 3 years. 20th century organizational norms and social activism methods based on centralized leadership have become outdated and obsolete. Get rid of them. That's how we lose. We are in a war of information and perception, which targets your cognitive biases, the cognitive biases of individuals and organizations. That is the target, to transform those cognitive biases in ways that are in the interests of the opponent, who, in ideal fifth-generation warfare, you never even know who they are. To create new cognitive biases and propagate it out into the population without their being aware that it's being done to them. This is completely different from classical warfare. It focuses on the individual observer and decision makers. It's difficult or impossible to attribute. It is truly leaderless and decentralized, which makes it incredibly powerful because no one can be taken out. The nature of the attack is completely concealed. You never see it coming. Understand the Milgram experiment and the Ash experiment. These have clearly demonstrated the ability to manipulate the human mind and human behavior in ways that are far beyond what we assimilate within our own souls as what we would do, and yet we will. Understand lockstep. Discussed in a 2010 Rockefeller Foundation report, lockstep was the idea of using a pandemic to impose tighter top-down control modeled after the Chinese social credit system. This is not a conspiracy theory, folks. This has been planned, discussed, and deployed. Understand what the Five Eyes Alliance are. This is fascinating. When you think about the landscape right now and think about what has been the most egregious deployment of totalitarian measures in response to the corona crisis, what are the nations that come to mind? Australia, Canada, New Zealand. I argue that all three of those are now captured client states of the World Economic Forum. They are no longer functioning as autonomous national entities. The United Kingdom and the United States. What ties them together? The Five Eyes Alliance. This security consortium, okay? They share data among each other, and when they are prohibited from acting against their own citizens, they have reciprocal arrangements so that, for instance, MI5 acts against United States citizens, CIA, NSA, and other US agencies act against UK citizens. Okay? These people are trained to manipulate your mind. Test everything. Think for yourself. Do not believe me. Do not believe Ryan. Do not believe... Think for yourself. That is our only way to get through this.